the post-COVID battle dominating Australian workplaces, big businesses trying to entice their employees back into the office, often only for 2 or 3 days a week. But the lure of working from home is winning. Last week, offices in Sydney and Melbourne were barely running at 15% capacity. Now, the knock-on effects are massive, and the change to office life, innovation, general socialisation for staff, it's enormous. So we went out today to get a feeling for what the average Australian on the street thought about so many staff staying home, and this is what we heard.
It's a completely new age, isn't it? So the planning is going to have to come from right up top, really, and then come back down to the bottom, because they're going to have to analyse what employees want, because if employees aren't getting what they want, then they're not going to really want to come back to that job.
A lot of people in the city are really suffering. Less people are going in there, but then communities in the suburbs have really gone exceptionally well.
I think it's just
changed.
part of the world now. You have to let them work from home if they can.
I'm loving, being the flexibility of working from home.
I think we need to accept that's part of the ways of working. I think high streets in the centre of cities with lots of restaurants and cafes have to adapt.
Interesting. Joining me now is President of the Australian Local Government Association and Labor Councillor for the City of Sydney, Linda Scott. Linda, welcome.
Great to be with you.
Is working from home just the new normal for Australians and employers have to suck it up?
Well, we know in a world where there is a war on talent and finding skilled workers is a challenge in all businesses and across all industries, that flexible work is a serious lever that so many employers are looking at in local government, where we're, like everybody else, trying to find the best and the brightest to come and work with us. It's a real challenge. But as a councillor for the City of Sydney, Chris, I want to be the voice saying, come back to Sydney's CBD. We know that those wonderful businesses, many of whom have been there for decades, like Dimmicks or City Extra down at Circular Quay, are doing well, but it's hard for them after years of lockdowns, of this very slow recovery from COVID. People should embrace our wonderful CBD. They should come back to work, grab their coffee at their local cafe, come back and have lunch with their friends in one of our fantastic fine dining establishments. We want people back in the heart of Sydney.
Now, we hear it anecdotally that suburban main drags and cafes are booming. CBD is a little slower on the uptake, as you rightly try and correct there. How do you reverse that, apart from getting on programs like this saying come back to the CBD? You've got to do more, don't you?
Well, look, there's great examples from around the nation. We're seeing the Lord Mayor of Melbourne, Sally Capp, doing a fine job introducing Melbourne Money, out there every day talking to CEOs and businesses about getting their staff back in. I recently took a very short, personally funded trip to New York and met with the Mayor's team there. He spoke about meeting with the CEOs in New York, with businesses, encouraging them to come back into the heart of New York, to have their employees not only working back in the office, which offers all those benefits of being able to see people, form those new relationships, but also, of course, the stimulus effect on the local economy is significant. So we're seeing global cities across the world running really smart campaigns and activating their CBDs to encourage people back.
All right, just back to Victoria again. The Andrews government has rejected the recommendations of their ombudsman to pay compensation to Victorians who were locked out of their state because of border closures. Thousands of families were separated. They couldn't get to medical treatment. Some were homeless, left homeless. The Andrews government is just saying no apology, no compensation. Do you think they should reconsider?
Well, look, that really is a matter for the state government. And as you can imagine, I'm sure they're in a difficult position, because if they were to pay compensation, there'd obviously be a significant precedent for the other states and territories that also lock down their communities. And is that the right funding priority in the face of very significant problems for our health and education sectors and our environment, all things that state governments have to fund. I advocated at the time that lockdowns be really targeted to local government areas because we saw a range of issues at those areas, particularly outside the cities. We advocated very hard, for example, in Broken Hill, which is of course in New South Wales. Their closest hospital is in Adelaide, and they had people unable to access healthcare because of the border closures with South Australia by the New South Wales government. So these are really tricky issues. I'm sure we'll look back on that piece of history as a very significant episode in Australia and the world's history.
Sour as well. In a very sour fashion as well. I've got to run, Linda.
That's right.
I've run out of time. Linda Scott, thank you very much for yours. Up next, the NDIS hospital bed fiasco, the go slow on electric vehicles, and why the Queensland Premier's online popularity has absolutely collapsed. All that and more with Sky News host Gary Hardgrave and Nationals MP Keith Pitt. Back shortly.